Okay, so there's been a lot of confusion about local sub pricing changes on Twitch. This is a pretty big change that Twitch has made to pretty much every country that Twitch operates in. They're changing the subscription prices for the cost it will cost you, the viewer, to subscribe to a streamer. And lots of people don't know, will this result in people making way less money? Will this result in people making way more money? And the purpose of this video is to explain and clarify what will happen, I think, with that result. So first of all, localized pricing is something that is super normal for companies to do. The idea is that there is different value for each country, right? Each country's, your average person in a country, maybe the United States, can spend a certain amount of money, but in like a second or third world country, their budgets will be significantly less. So $5 US is a lot to ask of somebody in a third world country compared to $5 US in the United States, or even $5 in Canada or the United Kingdom is worth even less compared to their local currency. So to understand what's going on here, we have to understand something called territories. And territories are how Twitch, Amazon, YouTube, etc., like basically every major digital media platform and maybe every traditional media platform kind of categorizes the advertising value of a country. So Group A territory is considered like USA, Germany, United Kingdom, stuff like that. Group B territories are usually Spain, Poland, etc. Like you see kind of like second to first world-ish countries. And Group C territories are everything else, which is certain areas of the Middle East, like Africa, etc., most of Africa. And the idea here is that Group A territories are going to be worth the most to advertise in because the purchasing power of the people there have the most amount of money to spend. And then Group B territories, you can expect like kind of a 50% drop in what's in CPM, which is like the cost per 1,000, the cost it takes to advertise to 1,000 people. And then you can expect like another 50% or more drop depending on Group C territories. And it's localized pricing basically reflects these territories. So areas like India, areas like Indonesia, these are Group C territories, right? Areas like Myanmar, okay? And then areas like New Zealand, which is what can be considered a Group B territory, they saw a decrease, but less of a decrease because their purchasing power is a bit stronger. So the price went down in a lot of different areas, and there's some really interesting implications of this. This is like more of those like technical videos for people that are really interested in marketing and really interested in how this kind of stuff works, because I like this stuff, so that's why I talk about it. Okay, so lower prices temporarily basically mean this. Okay, so what determines if you're going to make more or less money off of this change is where your audience lives, right? Because if your audience is mostly in Group A territories and you're a streamer that focuses in one of those territories, then you're not going to see any change at all, mostly, right? Because about 60% to 60 to 70% of your audience is going to reflect usually the country that you are streaming from. So there's some exceptions to this rule with United States streamers, by the way, because a higher percentage of European and Australian people watch USA streamers. Obviously, there's also more USA streamers on the website overall. But where this gets interesting is where you start dealing with like languages. So obviously, if you are a German streamer, you'll have a huge German audience, right? If you're speaking in German, and a huge percentage of your people will be in Germany. Likewise with Spain and Mexico, etc. Right? Like if you're mostly speaking Spanish, then it's likely that your audience will be a mix of Spanish territories, right? So your audience will reflect what you are doing, and so on. Your subscriptions will reflect that. So what'll generally happen, I think, is Twitch mentioned on its local pricing. So they're claiming right now that compared to 3 months prior to local sub pricing, viewers are gifting 5 times more subs. More creators are earning sub revenue now, and more viewers overall are supporting their favorite channels. In short, lower subscription prices are helping creators and viewers build vibrant communities together. These results confirm to us that lower prices help subscribers grow. No, that's not true, right? You can't use sub gifting as a metric to confirm that more new people will subscribe, because the gift subs are given by individual people, right? A person making a decision to subscribe to a broadcast versus a person who is gifting 5 to 10 subs is a totally different marketplace, right? So you can't correlate these things. This is wrong. What would confirm that lower prices are helping subscribers grow is the amount of new subscribers, new individual subscribers that are subscribing to a stream. But even that would be a twisted metric because, of course, the first time you introduce localized sub pricing, there is going to be a deluge of people who subscribe to the stream who otherwise may not 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years later when those prices become normalized, right? So the idea that they're trying to claim here that 2 or 3 months of data, or maybe even less, because I'm seeing in July some of these updates got made, that this results in better revenue for creators is crazy, right? That's not something that we can assume from this. So our goal is to introduce this pricing update to all countries slated to get the price reduction within the last month. Okay, cool. So shortly said, right now, I don't think we have the data to determine that localized sub pricing is going to increase subscription prices or increase an amount of subscriptions and thus increase creator revenue. So will you as a streamer make more money off of this? And the answer is probably not for this reason in the short term. In the short term, Twitch has a major problem with these territories. So in Group A territory, where internet is really good, a higher number of people can watch Twitch. The reason for this is because Twitch as a platform takes a lot more, I guess, bandwidth is the way to say it, than actually any other platform does. Like Instagram, you're loading a picture, right? Twitter, you're loading text and a picture. YouTube, you're loading a VOD, and you can preload that VOD and sort of download that VOD gradually over time. So people have a much easier time going to YouTube than they do going to Twitch. And this is one of the reasons why YouTube has 1.7 billion users and Twitch has far less. To view a live stream requires sophisticated internet. So generally, so sophisticated internet starts to become more spotty the further out into these territories you get. And the problem is that people that have sophisticated internet and are likely to subscribe in these territories will most likely subscribe. And then the kind of audience that Twitch is counting on to fill in this gap, because of these decreases in prices, right, you're going to need more subscribers. The idea is lower prices will bring in more subscribers. But that won't happen if those subscribers don't have access to Twitch or the wherewithal to be, or the bandwidth to be able to join the platform as a dedicated user, which is what you will see in a lot of these tertiary countries, right? The Group C territories. So what that means is that in the short term, if you are streaming and your audience is second or third territory, what will likely happen is you will lose money. Twitch knows that, and that's why they made this section, supporting creators through the changes. So we're confident lower subs will boost creator growth and revenue in the long term, but we also know we have to minimize potential dips in creator revenue during this early adjustment period. So for 12-month program, we're guaranteeing a certain level of revenue for eligible creators. Twitch will cover 100% of the baseline channel and prime sum revenue if needed for 3 calendar months, including the month of the price change. After that, we will slowly decrease by 25% every 3 months over the following 9 months, totaling a 12-month period of providing revenue adjustments. So what that means basically is they're going to cover you to some extent for about a year as these prices come in. So despite what they're saying above, which is like, yeah, localized prices increase revenue, it's amazing, right? They know that on the back end, they know that it's not going to increase prices in the short term because of this problem. And what they're betting on is that a couple of things. So one, we'll call this the bet, right? One, countries in the second and third world, third territories, gotta be careful with like the third world, second world, because like if you're a country that's second world, that's like an economic thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the territory is not the same as like being like the purchasing power parity, right? It's similar, it's linked up, but in some cases, a first world country could be a Group B territory, right? Like I think a lot of people would consider Spain a first world country, but it's a Group B territory just because people don't have the purchasing power they have in somewhere like Germany or the US. So countries in these second and third territories, this is the bet, will develop infrastructure, good internet, we should define, will become more accessible, and Twitch will be watchable by more people. So number one is a good assumption. I think that that'll happen. As these countries naturally develop, then the internet will get better, infrastructure will get better, and Twitch will be accessible to more people. I should say accessible here. The second bet is a little bit more risky, and that's assuming that Twitch will develop better technology to make his platform more accessible to these users. And then this is a multi-year expectation. So they're thinking that like in 4 to 5 years or so, the amount of people that come into Twitch from second and third world countries will make these two things worth it enough that localized pricing will shore up the revenue for second and third territory creators. So will that happen? I think so. So that's where this ends up. Is I think in the short term, creators will lose revenue. So okay, let's just like actually define this. First territory creators, nothing happens. So if you're a streamer in the US, Germany, any of those places, I don't think you notice a darn thing. Maybe a little bit of a decrease in revenue, but that gets shored up by Twitch because 20 to 30% of your audience that is somewhere else, maybe that's a little bit of a decline in revenue. Second world territory creators, you'll lose income, but Twitch will cover you for a year, and then you'll just be losing income for a while until hopefully people catch up in your country and you get more people on your platform. Obviously, it's also not entirely dependent on like a country's development. If you are going to get more subscriptions, like there are interesting implications in locally advertising here for second and third world creators, second and third territory creators. I've made that mistake like 40 times in this talk. Second and third territory creators have it's an interesting prospect of like, where do I advertise my broadcast? Because these creators are also dealing with these CPMs and these territory issues on YouTube, where it's the same. Like your CPM, if you're on YouTube and you're a creator in one of these territories, your CPMs are already reduced just by virtue of where you are and your audience, right? Especially if you're second or third language, or like second or third languages outside of English, like in terms of popularity. So you already have this problem, and now you'll have this problem on Twitch. And you'll probably have to do the same things that you do on YouTube to shore up those things and possibly increase your audience in other places. Being bilingual is great. And it always is strange to me when there's like a second or third territory creator that will use their primary language but also speaks English and doesn't do a bilingual stream. I think in terms of live streaming, you should always run bilingual just because you get a higher amount of audience there. Even if you prioritize a single language, like it comes to mind that Hassan will speak like English, for example, predominantly, but will respond to like Turkish people, right? And because of that, has a very very large amount, like a Turkish baseline that's like very high in his stream. And you see other creators do that too. For third territory creators, of which there are pretty few, because to be able to broadcast out of a like third territory is uncommon, but as time goes on will become more common. You'll probably lose a lot. Twitch covers you, and then who knows, right? Same problems as second territory. Hard to say. So the thing to do for streamers here is to diversify as much as possible to income streams, because one thing to keep in mind is that you don't need as much money in these other places too, because the cost of living is less. So it's going to cost a lot more to live in Seattle, like I do, where I pay a ridiculous amount of rent and taxes, than it is to live in, I don't know, Uzbekistan, right? So where it's become $1.49. So just because you lose income because the total subscriber pool goes down, I don't think I don't want to be dramatic, and I don't want to say that the amount of income that you lose is going to like substantially impact what you're doing, and I wouldn't be afraid of that. I think it's still viable to make full-time income in second territories, which is where most of the people watching this video, for the sake of like, I'm a streamer in Spain or Poland or any of these up here, right? Taiwan, Korea, Singapore, Group BC-ish, Brazil. Most of the people here, you will not notice a difference that is substantial enough to affect your income, and I wouldn't worry about this change. Overall, localized pricing is a good thing, assuming that Twitch does the same thing that every tech-based platform does, which is like you hit a certain point where your saturation in English-speaking audiences is very high. And then after that, you need to rely on growth in second and third territory countries, because that's where new users are getting the internet and onboarding and hearing about you for the first time. So as YouTube, for example, becomes a household name, most of the growth seen on YouTube will be in second and third territory upcoming countries that are just coming on the internet and being like, oh, what's YouTube? But Twitch has a problem that like Twitch is way more, it requires way more sophisticated. Like if you just get the internet, you can go to YouTube right then, right? And it doesn't really matter if you have like 1.5 down or some like really shady like wireless connection that kind of drops out every once in a while. But Twitch isn't like that. Like Twitch requires that you have a lot of bandwidth, and then at the same time, you also have all the problems of like being a Twitch viewer, which is like getting into the culture, particularly if you don't speak English well, is very difficult. Understanding the emote system. Because the average Twitch user watches Twitch about 100 minutes a day. The problem with that is that it takes a lot of education to kind of get into the domain of like, oh, I understand what's going on. I understand what these streamers are talking about. I understand like what's hot. I understand like what they're doing. And that education takes a lot. So I think that the uptick on third to second world countries, like what I'm defining is like the amount of people that are joining the platform versus like a YouTube, is going to be way less, because like the barrier to entry is way higher than just like going and watching a video on YouTube, which is easy, right? You go watch this video on YouTube, no problem. And if you're in Uzbekistan, you could watch this video on YouTube on like, a toaster that's connected to a router, somewhere. And I'm not saying everybody in Uzbekistan, before somebody puts that in the comments, I'm not saying everybody has a toaster. I understand there's cities and other places in America, okay? I'm just saying that like as we get out of the blast radius of more developed cities, right? Then like you're going further and further out. It becomes more difficult. And by the way, I'm also not claiming that like America is like the bee's knees of internet connections. I mean, most of our stuff here is an oligopoly and terrible. And there's many people that can't access Twitch from within America. So just because their internet's so bad. So this is not a problem that's isolated to second and third territories. This is a problem that's isolated, that's everywhere, right? And it's difficult to watch a live stream. It requires a lot of downstream to do relative to what our internet is. In fact, I think if we look at like average bandwidth, I don't know if I'll get this number. So in America, the average US internet speed, if this is to be believed, right, the typical American internet connection speed is 8.6 down. And if you live in certain part of the country, it's a better than average 12.7. And I don't know like what internet speed is required to watch Twitch, because if you want to stream, it requires like 6 to 8 up, right? Upload. So Twitch is saying if you want to watch streams over the internet, you need a stable internet connection and at least 4 to 6 megabytes of download speed. Okay, so if we can assume that the average US internet is 8.6 megabytes per second, average, right? Then doing some very loose math, you can figure out that like 20 or 30% of America, or maybe even a little bit more, still doesn't have access to Twitch. And those are to watching Twitch in a consistent way. And that's even on like 480p or whatever, much less like a 1080p super badass stream. So you're starting to see the problem that like if America, which isn't, there are better, like Korea, for example, might be a group B territory just because of purchasing power, but has way better internet overall than America. So sometimes this isn't a problem. Obviously, this is like a very diverse thing. But what the picture I'm trying to paint is that this will be a problem, right? Because there are poor spots of internet in all kinds of places all over the world, including America, including Group A territories. And Twitch will always have a problem onboarding users from those places unless the two assumptions that I made earlier are true, which is like one, the countries will develop, or two, Twitch will develop, right? So this is a problem that I think is always going to affect live streaming just by the nature of the medium and will be difficult to solve. And for creators, that means that you kind of have to plan around that, right? That like if once localized pricing becomes a thing for most of the ways that you get monetized, because you also have to plan for low CPMs in advertising, right? Because you're what's likely to happen as Twitch evolves is that advertising becomes worth more to you. On YouTube right now, if you're a creator on YouTube, you make the most money off of advertising by far. There's a few people that make money off of merch and Patreon and stuff. They monetize differently, but the vast majority of creators on YouTube make money off of ads. So you're beholden to those ads, and that what those ads choose to pay out is basically your paycheck. That will happen on Twitch, right? Like I don't think it will be subscriber revenue forever that defines how much money you make on Twitch, because that's not a scalable number, right? You'll always have a certain amount of viewers, and your subscribers will always be worth that flat rate of $4.99 in the US or whatever it's changed to in your localized pricing. Whereas on ads, CPM can basically go up infinitely based on category or all kinds of other factors, which is a whole nother talk that we could get into. So ads scale better than subscribers always, and you're likely, I would say, within like 3 to 5 years, most Twitch broadcasters will earn the majority of their income off of advertising if Twitch does its job correctly, because that'll represent a average value per creator, average revenue per creator will go up significantly, right? Because you'll still make all the money you make off of subscribers, minus a little bit for localized pricing, and then you'll make a ton more off of advertising. Like everybody's ad revenue on Twitch should go up a lot in the next 3 to 5 years if Twitch does their job halfway correctly. Big if, as always, right, with this platform. But yeah. So what else? Yeah, so I don't think this changes anything to worry about, but it is interesting. It kind of just gave me an excuse to talk about ad territories and how this stuff works, and occasionally link this video to somebody that is technically minded and wants to understand how these things work on the back end. Very few people will be interested in this because it's not drama, but to those that that were, I salute you. It's really great that you came out here to listen to this talk, and thank you for coming. I'm on Discord lately, discord.gg/Devin, since as of the time of this filming, I am not live streaming, but I am doing YouTube videos and I am talking about things still. So discord.gg/Devin is where I hang out, and that will be in the link in the description down below, along with all the other places you can check me out. Basically, Discord and Twitter are kind of where I'm hanging out right now. So thanks for coming out for this talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon for another one. All right, bye. Subscribe to the channel if you like it. I think 46% of you are not subscribed, which is surprising. If you're listening to this, hit this button. It's not the only kind of video like this. If you want the top, in my opinion, this is the best channel to come to for digital media stuff. I do lean pretty hard on Twitch, but plan to do more stuff on digital media outside of that. So yeah, so give this a subscription if you think it's worth it. It helps me out, and I'd love to see you back. Thanks a lot. Catch you again for the next video. Bye.